Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Senior to Scratch, episode number 13. This is where I'll do the mid-season report card. As usual, I do invite everybody to go onto my YouTube channel, Senior to Scratch, to see the visuals that I'm going to present during this report card. First, I want to apologize for taking so long between episodes. It's been quite a whirlwind summer. Back in mid to late June, we went on a golf trip with 12 folks, 12 golf nuts. We went out to the Maritimes in Eastern Canada and played 7 rounds of golf in 7 days in Prince Edward Island, or PEI. Following that, me and my family went to Vegas for a few days in the blistering heat. I think it was probably close to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It was quite excruciatingly hot, I have to say. And then my wife and I did some camping in beautiful Banff, Canada National Park. Just gorgeous scenery. So on either of these trips, either to Vegas or camping, did I take my golf club, so I did get a little bit rusty. And I did acquire some back pain somehow, where it didn't really affect my day-to-day life, but it did affect my golf swing, especially trying to drive into my lead side. I got this pretty bad pain in my lower right side. So I've been trying to go to different therapy, whether it's massage, chiropractic, osteopath. I just went to physiotherapy. I think it's slowly getting better. Luckily, there's a wealth of information on YouTube, so I'm trying to increase my hip flexibility and mobility and lengthen and strengthen my core. So hopefully that takes a lot of the rotational pressure off of my lower back, which I think may be the root cause of all of this. So if my back does hold up, I do plan on playing in our club championships in early August. It's really something that when I was talking to Michael Leonard of Wicked Smart Golf and listening to his content, he basically said that if you don't play in tournaments now, there'll be a time when you can never do it. So I think that's a good enough reason for me to do it. Plus, it'll help my mental game, and it will really test my focus because I'm not used to playing in a pressure cooker type environment like a club championship where there's so much scrutiny on the rules and all of that sort of thing. So, uh, yeah, hopefully it holds up, and then I can register for that at the end of the week. Okay, with all that said, let's get into the nitty gritty and get into this dang report card. Okay, let's go into the actual meat of this in terms of the handicap. That's where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. So, if you can remember my earlier episodes, I was a 5.2 at the start of the season. And then what you can see is it fluctuating. It came down to a low of around 4.4. I believe we went all the way up to a 5.8, mostly during that golf trip. During that golf trip, obviously, we're playing 7 courses in 7 days. We don't know the courses. We're at sea level versus 4,000 feet elevation, and there's a lot being drank at the time, if you know what I mean, if you've ever been on a golf trip. So you can see my handicap steadily rising there. And as I said, when I got back, I got some back pain, and I really didn't play well, so a lot of those rounds didn't count. But recently, the last 4 rounds, you can see that I'm now trending down, and I'm at the low of the season. So 4.4 relative to 5.2 at the start. So I want to say I am a quarter of the way there, trying to get to scratch. One thing I will mention to toot my own horn a little bit is today I did shoot a fairly good round, a 76 from some difficult set of tees that I don't usually play. However, I was even par going into 17, and I ended up finishing with 2 double bogeys. Had I not done that, my handicap would have probably dropped below 4. It was very hot today. It was in the low 90s here, and there was almost no wind, so it was pretty stifling for us out there. I know it's just an excuse, but it is kind of an indication of how much the handicap can change just based on how a couple of holes go in one round, since it only takes the best 8 of 20 rounds. Now, to preface this analysis for the report card, I'm going to use the last 10 rounds of golf played. And so essentially, what that will do is it'll exclude the golf trip, which, for various reasons wasn't a good indicator, as well as excluding my back pain. So essentially, what it's going to do is go from the start of June to present day and excluding those times. So that's roughly 10 rounds that I did track within the Decade Golf software. So as you can see, my scoring average is just over 77. Uh, I probably want to get to this tier of 72 to 74 ish on the low end just to be closer to scratch. So I'm one tier too high. The one thing that I did notice that is an issue is the par four scoring. My par four scoring is roughly half a shot over par, and when we dig into the details on the strokes gained, it'll be very obvious why it's like that, or at least it was obvious to me. There's a couple of facets of my game that need to improve. All right, so we'll start with the off the tee performance. I am hitting almost 59% of the fairways. And when I looked at the PGA Tour average, it's basically 61%. So I'm only a couple percent below PGA Tour averages. My strokes gained driving per round is I'm losing 1.3 shots relative to the PGA Tour. So I'm very happy with that. I don't think there's anything I need to change on the tee. Uh, all I'm going to do is practice pre-round just to get warmed up, and that's basically it for the driver side of things. If I were to grade myself in the the tee performance, I'm going to give myself an A plus. I'm not being boastful because just wait, there's going to be some really bad grades coming later on. I do apologize for those of you who are watching on YouTube. It's such a nice evening here in Calgary. I decided to sit outside and do this, and it is getting darker, and I don't have proper lighting, so hopefully it's not a problem. It's going to be mostly screen sharing from this point forward, anyways. Okay, next we'll talk about the approach game. My total greens in regulation at the top is 57%. When I looked up the PGA Tour average, it is roughly 66%. So I am about 9% below that, which in and of itself isn't terrible if I'm comparing to the PGA Tour. But the fact is, I'm not scoring as well. So why is that? Well, you can see in terms of being 101 yards to 230 yards from the fairway, I my greens in regulation is on par with a low 80s shooter. So there's definitely some improvement I need in the greens and regulation stats from the fairway. And you can also see how that's reflected in poor scoring numbers. So even from 75 to 100 yards in the fairway, it's taken me 3.25 shots roughly. So, that would be basically a quarter shot over par from that close distance. And the numbers, they will get higher, obviously, with the farther away. Anywhere from 150 to 200, I'm losing zero point 0.6 shots to par there. So all in all, you can see my strokes gained approach per round is I'm losing 2.3 strokes. So there's definitely some improvement that's needed here. The other thing I should mention is when I looked at the proximity from say 75 to 150 yards in the fairway, my numbers weren't terrible. They were roughly 25 feet. And when I looked at the PGA Tour average, it's 22 to 23 feet. So it's not bad there, but I think what happens is it's coming down to the putting. So I'm not entirely clear how the strokes gained approach works, but if I do uh, get close, I think I'm three putting a lot more, which is making my score uh, do this basically shoot over par on a variety of distances. So, given all of these factors, if I were to grade myself, I don't think my greens in regulation is terrible. My proximity is not bad. the scoring average isn't the greatest. And I don't know about the strokes gained and approach. I'm going to give myself a B minus for my approach game. And basically, what that means is I don't think I need to practice a lot in terms of dispersion and that sort of thing with my irons. I am going for a lesson later next week. I might see if there's anything I can do to hit a higher ball because I think with harder greens, it becomes more difficult to hold the greens if my ball flight is too low. So that's essentially all I'm going to do regarding my iron approach game. Okay, now to putting. My strokes gained putting is I'm losing 2.2 strokes. And if you look at the decade system, the way they have divided it is into 20th percentile, 40, 60, 80, 100. Essentially, I'm in the bottom 40% here in terms of stroke gained. I'm in the bottom 20% when it comes to the total three putt avoidance. So, why am I making so many three putts? And I do believe it's because I'm just hitting my first putts too far. If you look at the leave short percentage, sure on the putts within 10 feet, you don't want to leave them short. But as soon as you start increasing your distance from the hole, you probably need to have a better distribution of more putts being short. Because if you're long all the time, you're going to have long comebackers. And I know there's drills on decade that help distance control that I have not done because I haven't had time. So that's definitely one of the things that I'm going to work on going forward is the ladder drill, and there's some random practicing apps on decade that gives you various distances and gives you 18 holes to play on a practice screen. So I'm going to do that. You can see here once again, three putt avoidance stats are horrific between 5 and 20 feet. I'm three putting way too much, basically in the bottom 20th percentile, as well as over 31 feet. I've got roughly over a third of my times I'm over 31 feet or am I three putting. So that's not very good at all. And then if you zoom in on the strokes gained, you can see from 8 to 10 and 10 to 15 feet, I'm losing a quarter stroke per hole. So not very good. I think I know what to do. If now I just have to find the time to make sure I practice. The other thing is my putter grip kind of twists a little bit, so it just makes everything not square. So I need to get that fixed, or need to get another putter. So I've got some issues that I need to address there. There's a really neat distribution graph that comes out of the Decade app. This one is specifically for 10 to 20 foot putts, but you can see uh, from the left is a short distance and then the long distance towards the right. And yeah, you probably want to be long more than you're short, but the way this distribution curve looks isn't very good. You can see quite often I'm 3 or 4 feet plus long, and that's even happening 15% of the time. So if I'm over 4 feet, I'm going to three putt a lot of those. So, like I said before, the thing is, I'm going to try to limit this tail here on the long side. So I just need to center a lot of those longer putts more around the hole. So, all of that being said, I am grading myself a big fat D on putting. But I think I do have a plan if I do have some time to address it. Finally, let's talk about short game or around the green. You can see I have a strokes gained of minus zero point 0.7, which doesn't seem that bad, but I don't know about that stat. I think I'm much worse than that when it comes to around the greens. You can see my save percentage is roughly 40%. I think I need to get that up closer to 50% to get anywhere close to scratch, because that 40% is equivalent of a high 70s to 80 shooter. My sand save is pretty bad. I've lost a lot of confidence around the sand because we have such different sand qualities around the golf course. That's not an excuse. I need to learn how to play soft sand, no sand, and just normal sand. So that's another part that I need to improve. upon. So I think with all that being said, I am going to grade myself a C plus on around the green performance. And I know I need to spend a lot more time on this. I did purchase a book and watch and follow a fellow by the name of Dan Grieve on YouTube. His technique is very good. I just haven't practiced it and I'm not comfortable enough with it, but it will hopefully allow me to hit a variety of shots around the green, read the lies, and perform a lot better and hopefully get that save percentage closer to 50%. Well, there you have it. If I were to, in aggregate, give myself a grade, I think I would probably give myself somewhere between a C plus and a B minus. I think there's some facets of my game that are pretty good and others which I really need to improve. Now, I've gotten basically from a 5 to a 4, which is good. I know I'm not going to get the scratch overnight, if ever. But to go from a 4 to, say, a 2 is going to be an extremely difficult task, and then to go from a 2 to a 0 even more difficult. So it is going to be a work in progress. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining me on the episode 13 of Senior to Scratch. Once again, if you are able to, I would invite you to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to my channel, where I have a lot of other content besides golf on there. I have some travel stuff as well. So until next time, we will see you and have fun on the links. Thank you.